Hi, Sally Foley-Lewis here, and we are about to dive into another amazing conversation with a senior leader. And this is the Spark video series for self-leadership. You are in for a treat because I am sitting here with let me say this properly, Associate Professor Law, Dr. Caroline Hart, and she is the Associate Head of School Engagement for the University of Southern Queensland. So I am so excited to welcome you, Caroline, to this conversation.
Thank you, Sally. I am really honoured and delighted to be here, and I can't think of a better way to be spending this morning than to have a conversation with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Look, let's just dive right in. I really would love to hear your perspective, your thoughts on what does self-leadership mean to you?
Thank you, Sally. I love the fact that it's called self-leadership because everybody should be a leader of themselves, and I think that should make people feel excited. What does it mean to me? I think it's actually been. I actually think it's fun. It should be one of the most motivating. The biggest adventure is actually leadership over yourself. It's a whole thing about a journey into finding out about yourself, not in any sort of self-centered way, but just about finding out about your strengths, your weaknesses. It's about sort of engaging with other people that are going to give you some genuine feedback. And I often think you want that feedback if it's a little bit, not wonderful, if there's a sense of humor in it. But I just sort of think that's been it has truly been the biggest adventure of my life, is probably feeling as though I was a very frightened, nervous, anxious sort of child, and then growing up and sort of being a little bit brave, showing a little bit of courage, and realizing that you do have this role, this relationship with yourself, in which I think is probably the most important relationship with yourself, where you can view yourself dispassionately, but also be kind and gentle to yourself, and just find out, as I said, what your strengths and weaknesses are, because that's where you're actually going to have your impact with other people. If you can sort of have that sense of what you can contribute, how, it's quite liberating. And it then allows you to sort of have conversations with other people that springboards their ability to sort of foster their own self-leadership. So that's some of the things that it means to me, and it's just been a great journey.
Oh, wow. And I love that you said it should be fun and an adventure. I haven't heard that before from others, so I really love that you've added that to the mix. And I think one of the things that I hear you saying is that with self-leadership, you get that courage. Yeah, and I love hearing that.
I heard a great statement that somebody said to me the other day, that you actually need 5 seconds of courage or bravery in a difficult situation. And it's true. It's that whole situation that is really confronting. Your heart is pounding. You don't think you can think straight or speak coherently. But then when you think, look, I just have to hold it together for 5 seconds and confront a particular situation, and before you know it, you use the phrase, let's dive in. You've dived in, and all of a sudden you're in there, and it should be a sense of exhilaration. It isn't about controlling everything. I'm not big on feeling that you've got to control everything in terms of any form of leadership. It's about actually responding. It is about listening. It's listening to yourself, to your own intuition, your own judgment. And it's also listening to other people and responding to what they're saying, whether that's what they're verbally telling you, or it might be what their body language is telling you. So it's actually really engaging with the entire, all of your own senses, but also the other person in front of you.
And it sounds and how they respond to the way you're behaving is what you're saying. Is that right?
Yeah, maybe giving a little bit of a space where you can sort of emanate a sense of, look, this is going to be a safe conversation. We don't have to I'm not going to have all the answers, but, right now you feel almost metaphorically that I'm got you in some sort of emotional, not a hug, but that sort of almost that sort of sense, and let them express something. And I'm talking about, you know, where situations can be quite seemingly negative, but then when you provide that space, all of a sudden the situation can turn around, and you end up with something that's really powerful.
Yeah, so you're creating that psychological and emotional safety that, you know, this is the intent of this conversation, is to fix or resolve or to clarify. It's never to diminish or humiliate or anything like that. Yeah, no. Yeah, I love it.
And just on that then, so well, self-leadership is about, you know, obviously, leadership over your own emotions, your own thinking, your own, what you're saying. I think that what then happens is that you can then sort of guide other people, mentor other people into having confidence to find their own, self-leadership experiences.
Absolutely. And just last year, I did a program on how to be a confidence coach. And one of the things that I learned in there, when I heard it, of like, of course, it's so obvious, but you need someone else to plant that seed sometimes. But it was a case of when I've got confidence, and when I deliberately decide to improve my confidence, it's like a habit. I've got to work that habit and keep building it. But another element to having greater confidence in oneself is actually showing confidence in others. And so when we give it away, we get it back. And just that really resonated with what you were just saying. So I think it's what we do and what we build in ourselves. It's like a colander, you know, it'll seep out through the holes onto others, I think. So yeah,
it's a great analogy.
Yeah,
I like that.
Thank you. So I guess then, you know, as we're talking about the impact of self-leadership, what's the value or in other ways other than courage and confidence, that self-leadership has as a leader for a team or the work or any other aspect?
Well, I think I'll just say a few things around that. I think that that question about what impact does self-leadership have on, say, confidence, influence, and courage, which I just think are such great words. I love the choice of those words, Sally. I think, first of all, the impact is that you realize that we are all stronger, we will achieve much more operating as a team. And I really love this idea about collaboration over competition. I frequently talk to people about that, and I say we are so much stronger if we are collaborative. And I think one of the things that I have found is that, just going back a little bit to the self-leadership, that what it does, I think, is we talked about courage. We're talking about really deep emotions. And I think that when you've got self-leadership, and that, you know, as you're saying, that spills out through the colander, it actually allows us to sort of be able to express our emotions in a way that lifts ourselves up, but also lifts other people up. It gives people, I wouldn't say permission, but it gives people a sense of, actually, it's okay to show your emotions. Yeah. It's okay to feel as though I'm really frightened in this situation. I will just share an experience that I had quite recently.
Yeah.
I was invited to MC an event that there were about 200 people at it, and I'd been offered that. It was quite a last minute, but the people that invited me were very, very caring, supportive. They were fabulous. One of the speakers at this event, it was a very highly emotional topic. The afternoon session was very emotional. And I'd introduced this particular person, and I went and sat back down, and it was quite harrowing. And I then, when I got her, I just had been sitting in my chair. I had tears. The entire audience had tears. Mm-hmm. And then I stood up to continue the emceeing, and I literally just stood there, and I could not articulate the sentence. I stood there and I was totally overwhelmed. And it was wonderful. I thought, look, I'm not going to fight it. Let it, just sort of went with it, if you like. The audience, they were equally, it's quite an amazing experience.
Yes.
And somebody in the audience called out and said, Caroline, do you want a hug? And that, again, humor broke everybody then, it was a way of sort of breaking the sense of, this has been a really monumental moment, the entire previous session that had moved everybody. And it was almost as though the 200 people were connected through this incredible sharing of emotion. And let's kind of, if you like, let's pause, let's go with the emotion. Let's not try and fight it and pretend that, going into MC mode. Let's actually be human beings and interact with each other as human beings. And I think that leads into the question that you're saying about in the workplace, about influence, courage, is that I think we need to allow each other to be human beings. We don't have to sort of have this whole thing about, this is my work persona, this is who I am at home, this is who I am with various people. I mean, obviously there are different parts of us that we share with people that are closer. And I think one of the things that I've always strived for is this sense of, I wanted to be an integrated person with integrity, and I didn't want to feel fragmented. So in terms of how I operate at work, it is actually quite similar to how I operate across all, there isn't a different Caroline here and one over here. And I like the idea that we all can have the ability to be who we truly are. And I'm not a big, the word authentic is not really one of my favorite words, but I think it's just, let's just be who we are. Because, I do want to say this element that, in terms of my role with people, it's about nurturing. It's that person is who they are. Whatever they've got within them is exactly magically how it's meant to be. They don't need to sort of buy something in or do something. They've got it completely within them. And that our role with each other is to sort of bring out the beautiful flower or whatever it is that they are, whatever variety of beautiful bloom, let it bloom, because it's all there within them.
Yeah. Oh, I love that analogy. I just, and I do want to acknowledge you for that experience that you had on the stage. I mean, I'm a professional speaker and I totally went there with you, and to actually give yourself permission to hold the room for the room. Because I don't know, I wasn't in your head in that moment necessarily, but when an MC doesn't quickly just step in, and even if they do it, with a bit more empathy to try and transition to the next part of the program, the fact that you held it, and I think you just gave 200 people also permission to just sit with it, just that moment longer, and process and get ready for the next. And I think that needs to be acknowledged. And so thank you for sharing that. That is absolutely, that's heartfelt. And so thank you very much for sharing that. And yeah, I do agree with you as well about that point of collaboration will beat competition any day of the week. We are so much stronger together. And when we do tap into what's already inside of people and help nurture that so it does bloom, then the collaboration is far more authentic. It is an overused word. I like the fact that you used integrated. I think that's actually a better word, because who I am here is exactly who I am there. And that space through me are integrated. And I really, really like that as a better word for authentic. So thank you for sharing that. Oh my gosh, my heart's just singing for you. And I can just imagine being in the audience and thinking, oh good, she hasn't brushed it off. I've got a moment. They're probably not consciously thinking this, but they're probably just sitting there going, oh God, I've got to stop crying. I've got to just get myself back together. And then the MC steps up and says, you know what? Let's just breathe for a moment. And then, you've got the audience when that person yells out, do you want a hug? How beautiful is that?
Oh, well, and I think it was, we're both, we both do speaking for a living, and you get used to being very confident. And it was almost going back to being my kind of 13-year-old self. I had the voice was quavering, and, just the emotion was just so, I felt it. And I think everybody was probably a little bit on the edge of their seat for me. And it was this moment, I just thought, look, I'm just going to go with this. There was nothing sort of thought about it. It was just this, there was really no choice for me. And I think it was just this mark of respect for the speaker who had shared the most traumatic time. And it truly was just this sense of his bravery, his courage. And I think that's how that's how we moved out of it, was, can we just please give it up? Can we please just acknowledge the bravery and this courage of this amazing man who has shared this incredible story. And then, obviously he had sort of gone on, and I think it was a rawness, and I think that was it, the rawness of everybody's emotion. And, we all clapped and everything. And then it was this kind of sense of, well, it felt fitting that we didn't just sort of, as you were saying, that we didn't just sort of go on to the next, our business as usual. And I think, in terms of, come back to self-leadership, about influence, and it's about giving people their dignity, respecting them as human beings. And I think that is actually the most powerful thing we can do for each other. And I think that, that is something, it doesn't matter, in terms of what job somebody does. I don't care what job someone does, or what if they don't have a job. I think that I feel very passionate about, we must respect and give every human being their dignity. And we can do that every day in all these tiny little ways. It's about acknowledging people. It's about holding open a door for somebody. Yeah. It is about helping. And it is the tiny things. It is the little kindnesses.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And I think what I'm hearing what you're saying, but underpinning that is, I see you as someone with a strong sense of emotional intelligence, because the alternative would be, as an example, imagine someone who's got very limited emotional intelligence. They're really going to fumble through those moments. They're really going to not necessarily deliberately be disrespectful, or not necessarily handle their emotions so well, and acknowledge them and understand them from the stage, and as well as in everyday life with some of the examples you're just talking about now with dignity. So to me, that level of emotional intelligence is quite strong, and that's part of your self-leadership. So I know you keep talking about other people, but I wanted to acknowledge it in you. So I don't want that one to slide by you.
Well, I'd also make a comment on that, Sally, and thank you. It's lovely that you say that. But I think I come back to this phrase, a journey. And I think that, yes, you might come across somebody who seemingly is not performing very emotionally intelligently, but it may be because maybe something has happened on that particular day, on that moment. And this is why I really come back to the small kindnesses and the small expressions, is because I truly believe we can all learn from each other, and we need to sort of give each other, if you like that, give them a sense that, all right, well, I don't know what's gone on for you today, and maybe there was a reason why they snapped or whatever, but we need to keep lifting each other up. That's how we're truly going to change. I do think we can change the world in that regard, because I do think that the brain is the most amazing, the entire body is just truly amazing. And I think that we're all capable of learning. We're all capable of actually having that moment where we have an interaction with somebody, and all of a sudden you think, oh my gosh, that's just totally changed how I view the world. We can all inspire each other, and very often the inspiration sometimes it can occur without our knowing. And equally, other people who've inspired me might not even know that they have had that impact.
Yes. Yeah. And we definitely don't know necessarily the impact we have on others. And I guess that's sort of lending into another question I had about, if we think about the pandemic and the impact it's had, how do you, did it dent you in any particular way? And did you have to reignite your self-leadership in any way, or as well as then for your team and the people that might report to you, or at least you have some program authority over? How do you get them back up as well?
Well, I thought that was, and it is a great. I will speak to the COVID in terms of some event. There was a great phrase. I'm actually naturally an introvert. I am very happy. Most academics sort of really enjoy sitting in their office. And so in one way, COVID was good for me in a way, because I didn't have to sort of, I could actually just enjoy writing, all those sorts of things, researching. A really good friend of mine uses this phrase, never waste a good crisis. And I totally agree with that. I love that phrase. And,
Yes.
you know, I don't want to sound like a pseudo psychologist, you know, but I do believe that in life, it is not what happens to you, it's how you deal with it. And I think with COVID, not for a single second would I, you know, COVID had a deeply negative impact on health,
totally get that.
finances, on a whole range of things that really I just think has been a terrible, terrible situation. But in terms of the impact on me, yes, I clearly remember coming out to the university at sort of 3-4 in the morning, packing up my stuff, because we had had about 2 weeks of uncertainty, and then all of a sudden we were told we had to get off campus, and I thought, I'm going to get out there, pack my stuff up. And I was one of the classic people that went out and bought tins of tomatoes, pasta. I didn't go down the toilet roll track. But in terms of you know, in terms of igniting my spark, what I found was that there was about a 2-week period where everything went quiet. Everything went quite silent, and I was able to I got involved in some really serious research projects that were about what could I do to help regional communities, to do with the legal practitioners who do provide an amazing community support. I did a lot of ringing around to ask, how's everybody going? How's this impacting on you? And I got offered to do a research proposal that was about looking at, you know, a serious research project. So I found that it was about, all right, this is this terrible thing that's happened. What can I do to help? How can, you know, in my capacity as involved in legal education and my connections, what can we do? So I got a project on with the university and a particularly large society. Their work had all ground to halt. And I said, look, I know, Sally, you and I were talking about what USQ do, which is fabulous online. I said, let's take what we do online and let's get you guys online. So we did that. And that was kind of the big picture stuff. But on the smaller, which I found really amazing, I'd got all these networking events set up for face-to-face, and we couldn't do any of them. And then, like everybody else, we discovered Zoom. That has transformed my life. I just found that we connected. And I think that what COVID did is that after we'd got through the first of all, the panic, and, you know, fear, it was quite frightening. All of a sudden, you had people that were beaming in to my study. And from my little study at home, I connected with people throughout Australia, and I set up these networking events. So I totally got in every person who's inspired me. I got them on a networking event, got all our students. So we'd have 16, 17 students who were also worried, didn't know how this was going to impact on their career. And it connected. We got these connections. And those connections totally bloomed. And I do like that word. I have to come up with they flourished. They flourished. And so in terms of reigniting my spark and what lessons did I learn, I think the lessons that I learned is, first of all, reaching out in a crisis, reach out to other people. And what can I do to help you? And that probably goes back to my brief background in nursing. I did nursing before I did law.
Right. You've got nurture and caring in your nature.
And I think that as soon as you start saying, what can I do to help you, you immediately stop thinking about yourself and your own fear. And I think it allows you to step out and, you know, we use that phrase talking about being brave and having courage. I think that when you actually say, look, what can I do to help you? You're not even thinking about yourself. You're not even thinking about, you know, if you're feeling nervous or, you know, am I going to offend that person? You're just saying, look, what can I do to help you? And I think that everybody starts relaxing, and we solve the problems together. And it comes back to, let's always operate, you know, in a crisis. Let's everybody just, you know, stick together.
Everything you just said totally resonated with me, because in March last year, when it hit in 2020, I was being awarded a speaker award. And so I laughed when I received it because it was the exact weekend we were told to go home. And I went, don't think I'll be speaking much for a little while. But yeah, Zoom popped up, which is great. But similar to you, I came home and went, now what do I do? I've just lost all my gigs for the next few months. So that was total income gone. What do I do? And I went to my list and my clients, and I just rang and emailed and said, how are you? How can I help you be the best leader you can be for your people right now? What do you need from me? And they would say, oh, I don't have any money. It's like, no. It's got nothing to do with money. I'm very lucky to be in a situation where I can be supported for a while, and I've got savings and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. How do I help you be the best leader you can be right now so that your people are okay and you're okay? And so, so similar to you, and it was great because I just automatically went into that mode without really realizing until probably 2 months later, where I went, in hindsight, I think I've just inadvertently helped avoid my own crisis and inadvertently didn't realize it, but I could have spiraled down. I could have really been a little bit quite unwell emotionally and mentally about this had I not really just stepped into that serve mode and thought about, what can I do for you? And I think, and you're right, you get out of your head, don't you? Yes, so it truly is a valuable tool to have in your toolkit as a means to carry on, as a means to connect. And when we're able to just be present with others as well, it fills up our bucket too.
Yes. Yeah. And I bet out of that, Sally, that you probably got some, I wouldn't say connections, I'd say something deeper than that there was some, that you really sort of probably created some friendships or, purposeful friendships that have probably will stick with you. And so no, I think that's the only way to operate. I mean, what's the alternative? I mean, our mothers probably used that phrase, if you didn't laugh, you'd cry. And it's like, if you don't, reach out, then that's right, you kind of too much in your own head. But I think that's great. And I'm glad that I'm glad that we're on each other's radars, actually.
Yeah, definitely. I think that line, I used it in a few of the emails I sent out. If you don't laugh, you'll cry. And I would put something like, because typical Australians, we go straight to humour, and almost too soon with this humour. And so I said, humour is healthy. If you don't laugh, you'll cry. And so I put all these really bad COVID jokes and bad Zoom meetings and like I put everything at the bottom of the email. And I had someone write back to me once. She said, I know you keep offering to help me, but I'm loving your emails. It's all I need. Don't stop. They're keeping me sane. Please add more jokes. So you just, like you said before, you may never know just actually how much of an impact you have on others. I mean, I was lucky that they shared, but sometimes you never know how and you never know if. So because it'll be something, sometimes people won't share it with you. They'll just be on the receiving end of your goodness. So look, we're coming up to time, and I want to respect your time. But I guess one of the last questions I want to ask you, Caroline, is what's the one thing you wish you knew about self-leadership when you first stepped into a senior role or a leadership role in your career?
I think one of the things that I think is there is actually nothing wrong with failing. I think that, yes, people sort of equate leadership with sort of this sense of success, and I kind of like the Albert Einstein approach to life, and I've got two approaches that I share with my students. One's the Kylie Minogue and one's the Albert Einstein. What I love about Albert Einstein was that everybody remembers him, what a brilliant guy. Albert Einstein, yes, he had some brilliant, great ideas, theory of relativity. He also had huge failure. A lot of his stuff did not get off the ground. And I remember reading about Einstein and the fact that he didn't get everything off the ground. It wasn't all the theory of relativity, that there were a lot of failed ideas. And I think that as leaders and as people, as human beings, I think that that's one of the most reassuring things, that it's actually, it's okay to fail. And a lot of what I write about is that from failure, we actually learn. And that's when we go on to become stronger, adapt, develop resilience. We find out more about ourselves, and that's when we actually achieve more. And my Kylie Minogue theory of life is, I like Kylie Minogue because I think she is someone who she just keeps going. And I just love the fact that she just keeps on doing things. If you stick in something for long enough, it's like this kind of, I don't know what the cycle is, but yes, people love you and then they'll criticize you. But you've just got to keep on being yourself, and you've just got to keep powering on, because eventually people will then come back to love you, and they'll actually sort of admire the fact that you have had that resilience, the fact that you've just been a real soldier. And I think we probably need to sort of, sometimes in life, sometimes we've just got to be a soldier. We're not always going to be the colonel leading the army. Sometimes we're just a bit of a foot soldier slogging away, doing things in the dark. It's unrecognized. It might not be popular. Trust your instinct, trust your judgment, surround yourself with close friends that love you. And as we keep saying, we'll have a bit of a joke with you, tease you, not let you get too big ahead. And so those are the things, if in terms of wishing that I'd known about self-leadership, that we think it's all about being confident all the time and the success. I don't think it is.
It keeps you humble, doesn't it? And I think that's one of the greatest things, that if failure can keep us a little bit humble, while the time, and also great analogies, Albert Einstein and Kylie Minogue, great mashup in my head there. It's brilliant. But I also love about that foot soldier, just do the work, and it may not be seen, but it's the foundational work. It's going to set you up for something, and it's going to serve you long term. And this is and like you said, and I totally agree with you, this is a journey. I used to be the CEO of the Duke of Edinburgh's Award, and we'd say to the young people, this is a marathon, not a sprint. You can't rush this program. This is not a badge collecting kind of game. We want to see a bit of a commitment in every element of the program that you're doing. And of course, kids are like, but I want it now. And I was a kid, that was me. But it's a marathon, it's a journey. And so that work will pay off. So I love those, Albert Einstein and Kylie Minogue. Thanks, Caroline. That's brilliant. Look, any last words before we sign off?
Just to say, Sally, thank you so much for inviting me to speak. It always really surprises me when people ask me to talk about leadership, because I just think, look, it's just I'm just being little old me, and but I'm very happy to share, what little stories I can, and I just love seeing my students, my graduates grow and achieve great things. I always sort of think, look, at the end of the day, I'm a bit of a gardener, and I just love seeing all of those beautiful graduates go on and do wonderful things. It just, and I'm sure that you probably have the same feeling with the people that you work with. It's a privilege. It truly is a privilege.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And watching your people bloom, which I love the analogy you've used throughout the entire session. So thank you. Associate Professor Law, Dr. Caroline Hart. It's been an absolute honour and a privilege. And thank you for sharing that story with the stories with me and with our Spark Self-Leadership video series. Thank you, and bye for now.
Thank you, Sally.